William Whalen here for GetMoreSports.com, looking at the NCAA Tournament bubble. And we've got bubble hopefuls across the country moving up, moving on, and moving off. And right now we've got an interesting situation developing in the American. A Big 12 hopeful gets a big-time win. One Big 10 hopeful suffers a slight setback in a loss. And, of course, one ACC team also suffers a setback, but they just might still be in. So I want to start in the Big 12, a team that I have hammered on recently, and that is the University of Texas. Rick Barnes' group got a big-time home win over Baylor in overtime. I think that should secure their spot in the field. Of course, getting some momentum going after this win would be crucial for them. But nonetheless, I think they really needed this one. Definitely needs to get something in terms of a good tournament win since their win over West Virginia back in January. And this is really their first one. A lot of their conference wins had come against Texas Tech and TCU. This, of course, breaks that trend a little bit. A really big win for Texas. I think you should feel comfortable now about your spot in the NCAA tournament. But, of course, closing out with another win or two in this season would not do you any harm. Now let's look at Indiana. Indiana has stumbled again recently, losing to Iowa, an Iowa team that's been incredibly inconsistent. And so has Indiana, quite frankly. A team that I had safely in the tournament recently. Now I'm wondering, where do they stand? They've got a big matchup coming up against Michigan State. Michigan State, a team that is firmly in the tournament right now with a top 30 RPI. Indiana's still very much in the zone where you don't know what's going to happen. They need a big-time win over the Spartans just to make Selection Sunday a little bit easier for them, to make sure that they don't have anything crazy to do in the Big Ten tournament. And then looking at North Carolina State, they suffered that setback loss against Boston College. Really a bad loss, not the kind of loss that you want this close to Selection Sunday. But nonetheless, I do feel like they've still done enough to be in the tournament, but that gave a big hit to their RPI. And so they've still got a little bit of cleanup to do, I think, just kind of avoiding any more letdowns this season, and I think that they should feel good about being in, as I've referenced before. Big wins over North Carolina and Duke, I think, outweigh that loss to Boston College. And then a really interesting situation in the American right now where we have Temple and Cincinnati, two teams that have been in the tournament solidly at one time or another. I think Cincinnati has really fallen towards almost the outside looking in part of the bubble. Temple, of course, right now for me, as I've said recently, I think they're in right now. But it's starting to feel like only one of them is going to get in. And it's going to come down to a matchup that they have later on the season with Temple facing UConn and Cincinnati having a couple games coming down the stretch as well that they need to kind of clear out and get some needed W's in. So my thinking is this, is if Cincinnati goes through the rest of the season without losing and then they go to the American tournament and maybe they only lose to an SMU, a team that's already in the tournament, I think they've got a pretty good shot. If Temple loses to UConn, they're going to be in a really interesting situation because the top 100 wins and top 50 wins are not going to be what we all thought they were. Of course, that win against Kansas earlier in the year is still propping them up. I like where they're at, but I think it might come down to a situation where we only see one of those two get in the tournament, and that Temple-UConn game could tell us a lot about which one it is.